Last weekend, Max Verstappen might have just changed Formula 1 and motorsport in general with what happened at the Nürburgring. Yes, hello everyone and welcome back to episode 2 of Matt212's Motorsport Rambles, where we go through, I talk about kind of whatever I feel like going on in the real world of racing. And as I'm sure all of you will have seen over the weekend, Max Verstappen did his first race at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, obviously part of the NLS Championship, and, I mean, there's no other real way of describing it. He absolutely dominated. I think in the time he was in the car, they built up like a 1 minute advantage. He qualified P3, took the lead at the start, and he and Chris Lullum never really looked back. And, I mean, on paper, yeah, it was an absolutely dominant drive. Now, of course, for those of you that have obviously watched like the NLS and things like that, there are some caveats to this, of course. Number one, that a lot of people seem to be failing to mention is it's not the most competitive GT3 series in the world, apart from the Nürburgring 24. Obviously, most of the absolute creme de la creme of GT3 drivers were out of Fuji for the World Endurance 6-hour event at the weekend. But immediately, I don't want that to come across as me trying to diminish Max's performance, because to be able to jump in at the Nürburgring and do a very, very good job is, something incredibly special. He was going up against Jan Mardenborough on his return to the Nürburgring as well, obviously after his massive crash a decade ago in that Nissan GTR. He was also going up against a couple of, renowned Nürburgring specialists as well over the course of the event. And, in kind of Max Verstappen fashion, he did dominate the race, as we've come to see in Formula 1 as well in the past. But getting the result, obviously absolutely fantastic for him, obviously from his time on iRacing and everything like that. We know he loves this venue. We know that obviously Verstappen loves endurance racing as well. But I'm really hoping that this kind of starts to turn the tide of what happens with Formula 1 drivers. And I'm kind of hoping that maybe, just maybe, we head back towards a golden age where Formula 1 drivers aren't exclusively Formula 1 drivers anymore, of course. It was a long time ago now. The most recent examples I can think of were obviously Nico Hülkenberg doing the 2015 Le Mans 24-hour and obviously winning that with Porsche. And then, of course, obviously Fernando Alonso winning Le Mans twice in 2019 and 2020, wasn't it? If I remember correctly, with Toyota. Obviously, yeah, winning that event twice. Doing the Indy 500 as well, not having as much luck in that event, but of course Indy is a very, very different event now. Verstappen has immediately made it clear he's got no interest in trying to win the Triple Crown. Honestly, the amount of kind of junior Formula drivers, and of course obviously some of them make it to Formula 1, some of them don't. Roman Grosjean is a great example of this as well in recent years, that take one look at the Indy 500 and just say absolutely not. Especially if you're trying to maintain a full-time Formula 1 career as well. Indy is just really, really scary. Over racing is just really, really scary. And I do genuinely think it's something that European mind struggles to comprehend. Especially, in NASCAR we saw, I think it was, I can't remember, Chase Briscoe, I want to say, at the weekend, ended up on his side going around the banking out at Kansas. And, NASCAR is a lot safer than IndyCar for the most part. It's still not unheard of, even in this day and age, for IndyCar drivers to get seriously hurt. So I don't think we're going to see Max do the Indy 500 anytime soon. But as I was saying, though, I think, hopefully this will start to create a little bit more intrigue. I think for such a long time, of course, between Hülkenberg going back to Le Mans, really between kind of the late 90s up until Hülkenberg's return, nobody was really doing both anymore. Obviously, a Formula 1 campaign and Le Mans. Now, I know next year, I believe Le Mans actually clashes with, I think it's the Austrian Grand Prix. So, if Verstappen wanted to do that next year, it's certainly not going to be viable for him. He'd have to miss a Formula 1 race, which I imagine contracts and things like that will be very, very bad. But hopefully this starts to make F1 have to kind of question their reign kind of at the top of the motorsport world. We saw it, I believe it was this year, didn't we, with the Canadian Grand Prix, that obviously they managed to make it clash with the Indy 500, which, I mean, especially for a Grand Prix in North America, seemed like a hilariously stupid idea by Formula One. But I remember talking about it on Knowing Wheel, that obviously I do with Jamie, where, I made it clear, obviously, in that video, this was a deliberate move by Formula One, by FOM, by Liberty, to try and kind of almost poke the bear. And I think it was honestly a bit of a test in the waters to just see if they could really, really try and crush down some of these rival series. I mean, we've kind of seen all the stuff going on with Colton Herta, and obviously now looking like he's going to move to Formula 2 next year. But I'm hoping if Verstappen kind of starts to, push back the other way. I mean, he's already made it clear before he's not a fan of, these huge calendars we get in Formula 1 now. It does take up your entire life as a Formula 1 driver, understandably, but even more so now than ever before. You think 15 years ago there was 16, 17 races a season. We were pushing up towards 19 or 20. Now we're up to kind of 24. Zach Brown has said, that could go, closer to 30 in the next few years as well. It is kind of getting a bit ridiculous, and maybe Verstappen can kind of be the first to kind of push back against it. Arguably at the moment, I think there's very, very little discussion to be had that he is probably the best driver in the world right now. Obviously he's won back-to-back Formula 1 Grand Prix again. Still in the outside shot for the World Championship. I think realistically, though, even he doesn't believe it's going to happen this year unless McLaren have an absolute meltdown. But yeah, back-to-back Formula 1 Grand Prix wins. Between those two races, he went to the Nürburgring, got his licence, went back, won Baku, and then has gone back to the Nürburgring and won his very first attempt, of course, in the NLS as well. Could we be heading back into a golden era where Formula 1 drivers, I think it was Jim Clark was a great example of this. I know obviously it wouldn't work with Formula 2 now, but yeah, obviously Jim Clark would do a Formula 1 race one weekend, then he'd do a random Grand Prix somewhere else, then he'd do a touring car event, he'd then go do Indy, all this, that and the other of kind of different series of, if I can give it a go, then I'm going to give it a go, and he's going to do very, very well. And I think, honestly, I want to see Formula 1 drivers competing at Spa 24, competing at Le Mans, maybe a couple of them take on the Indy 500 and bits and pieces like that. We've seen it already, and I've said it over the last couple of years. GTP racing, top class, World Endurance, IMSA, they are in such a golden age right now. We're seeing all these manufacturers coming in, all this hype kind of around the series, and I'm really hoping that a couple more Formula 1 drivers take the bait. I'd love to see Charles Leclerc racing at Le Mans with Ferrari in their hypercar program in the future. We've obviously seen Mick Schumacher racing with Alpine, and then that potential, which looks less likely now, to try and get back into Formula 1 because of it. Audi obviously coming into Formula 1 next year. I know very controversially they've ditched their endurance racing program for this, but of course, through Porsche and obviously BMW's involvement, could we maybe see, Nico Hülkenberg come back to World Endurance with Porsche in the future, try and get another win on the board as well. Could we see Fernando Alonso come back with Toyota like he did a few years ago, or of course the Aston Martin Valkyrie program that is going on as well at the moment. There are so many great opportunities to try and get more Formula 1 drivers doing various events. Jenson Button, although a lot of it hasn't really gone his way over the last couple of years, we've seen him have a lot of fun doing World Endurance as well, obviously racing with Porsche Jota, if I'm not mistaken. We're really heading into a golden era, and I kind of think, Formula 1 led that. Obviously, with the rise of Drive to Survive, everything like that, suddenly motorsport was an in thing again. It was popular, it was massive, but Formula 1, I think it's safe to say, since then has kind of gone over its peak a little bit and is, I wouldn't say beginning to struggle by any stretch, but certainly doesn't quite have, the same interest as it did, 2020, 2021, of course. But outside of that, endurance racing has absolutely exploded in popularity, and I absolutely love to see it. World Rally seems to be, doing some good things with that. I think this year has been a bit more unpredictable, and there's been a little bit more special because of it, although Toyota still, for the most part, seem to be dominating. IMSA, of course, always seems to be going from strength to strength. IndyCar seems to be in a bit of a rut But NASCAR as well, for example, is starting to have a bit of a renaissance as well. Finally, I'm praying next year they get rid of the chase format that they've obviously got. Sorry, not the chase format, obviously the winning you're in format that they've got at the moment as well. But yeah, I didn't kind of want to make this video as like a recap of what Verstappen obviously did over the weekend, because you guys all know, I mean, the YouTube streams are everywhere. There were so many eyes on NLS as well. But Max Verstappen has got a really good opportunity here to try and really push Formula 1 into, or becoming more normal for Formula 1 drivers to race elsewhere again. And I think that would be really, really special. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down in the comments below. If you'd like seeing more videos like this, where I basically just ramble on about motorsport for 10 minutes or so, please do make sure you hit that sub button. I'd love to get this channel to 1,000 subscribers. But yeah, we'll be back very soon with more random motorsport rambles, I guess.